Sam Foster back with me here. Sam, we get our first official college football rankings reveal tonight. I'm really excited to see where Utah is. Utah made a huge leap in the AP poll. They were 25 basically because we had like a weird like BYU and Miami, I think it was tied at 10. So they were technically 24. It was strange, but they jump all the way up from what was 25, it should have been at least, to 17. And I think that is going to be right around where they end up at. I went through the exercise myself and was trying to say, okay, where is this committee going to have a Utah team favored? And I don't see how they're not in the top 20. Like, yes, they have 2 losses, but I look at Utah versus a Missouri, and you aren't going to say like, hey, Missouri plays in the SEC. Yeah, but they haven't beaten anyone. Like Utah hammered an Arizona State team that, say what they want, backup quarterback. I saw that backup quarterback just go on the road and beat an Iowa State team. I saw Utah as well just take down a Cincinnati team that at the very least is a really good team this season. So I feel like Utah will be in the top 20. I have them at 17. Where do you feel like Utah falls in the committee's eyes?
I think where it is in the AP poll right now is kind of exactly where it's going to be in the CFP as well. Let's see, they say they put them in like number 15, number 14, which I don't think they will. That would definitely be the very high end of where they're going to put Utah today. That's really interesting because where they put them today could really affect maybe getting a third team into the playoff from the Big 12. I don't think that's going to happen, but like, let's say they do put them at 14, 15. You only have to move up 3 spots for that. You would have to get lucky with maybe there's like a bad conference champion here and there. So maybe certain conferences only get 1 team in. But let's say they are 14. You have to jump 2 spots. That's really, really doable with Utah's schedule. You just win in dominating fashion. And I think that's why people like this Utah team kind of a lot right now. I think that's why they jumped so high in the AP poll, was that besides the 2 losses, which are good losses, but you would still like to win one of those. Besides those 2 losses, you're dominating teams. If you go out and you win every single game by 30 plus again, you're going to have a lot more of a say, even if you don't make it to a conference championship game, than if you just kind of squeak out some wins. But you have to get help. Like, we know that. It sucks that you have to root for other teams to lose and for all these things to fall just for a certain team to get help. But I would watch for maybe how high they rank Utah tonight, because that could be emblematic of what they do in a few weeks when actual rankings come out.
Style points are huge for Utah at this point.
Yeah.
If what you say has any chance of coming true, like there is a chance actually. I don't think it's a likely chance, kind of like what we talked about in the last segment. Honestly, it's probably more likely that Utah gets in the Big 12 title game, I'd even say. Then Big 12 gets 3 college football playoff teams in. But the chaos, you can't ignore it. And if a 2-loss Utah teams, only 2 losses are to Tech and BYU, let's say Tech beats a BYU, and then neither of those 2 teams lose another regular season game, both of them are in the Big 12. Like, you cannot keep either one of those 2 out of the college football playoff at that point. And then you need help if you're Utah. But if Utah blows out Kansas State, blows out Baylor, blows out Kansas, all of those teams too are kind of these frisky Big 12 teams where like one day they can actually be decent and give you a game, and the next they'll have like a terrible loss. But like, that's what those teams are capable of doing. So if you're Utah and you annihilated everyone, you have a close loss. The game was a lot closer against Tech, but you do have a straight up close loss on the road to a BYU. You have a path in. You need some help. I think the ACC, like, we need a Georgia Tech collapse. We need a Virginia collapse. You need Louisville to probably even have 2 to 3 losses, or maybe if they are a 2-loss team, like maybe they get in the Big 12 title game, the ACC title game, and they get blown out there, and that's your other path in. But ACC only 1 in, Big 10 only 3 in, and then a little more SEC chaos. There is a path, Sam, and you need help, like you mentioned, but at least there's a chance for Utah. And I never thought we'd be even talking about a 2-loss Utah team having a chance at an at-large team. But with how dominant this team has been, I think it's at least worth a discussion point right now.
You're also going to have to keep an eye out for Notre Dame. They also only have 2 losses. And I mean, Notre Dame's almost always going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to college football playoff rankings. So that's another team that Utah's going to have to compete with. But also a sneaky thing to look out for. I don't think this would happen, but it would be so funny. Let's say the rest of the ACC just absolutely collapses the rest of the year. Where does the college football playoff committee put San Diego State tonight? Where do they put Memphis tonight? Where do they put North Texas tonight? JMU, they're also only 7-1. There's a few group of 5 teams that like maybe they would sneak in. You would have to pray for an implosion for the ACC, and I'm talking like 4-loss champion. The odds of that are so slim. But watch out for these group of 5 teams, because at the end of the day, those are still going to be some of the champions that are competing with a non-champion Utah if it does come down to attending Utah hoping to get in.
Some of these teams in the ACC, like I look at a Virginia, and I give you Virginia credit, right? You beat, Florida State win just doesn't simply look as good. Florida State is like they started out amazing, and then now they're awful. Like it's hard to even fathom what happened to Florida State, but they do have a really good win over Louisville, because I like that Louisville team. I think it's a good win, but then you nearly lose. And I know the Tar Heels are getting better, but you cannot, if you are a college football playoff team, beat North Carolina 17-16. That is, with how bad that Bill Belichick led team has been, that can't happen. You go on the road and you win at Cal by 10. That's good. I still think they stumble somewhere in here. Lost to NC State's a little bit better with what NC State did to Georgia Tech, I guess, but I just don't value the ACC as much. I genuinely believe the best conference in college football this year, depth-wise, is the SEC. They claim it every year no matter what, but I think depth-wise, the SEC is the best. I think the Big Ten would still be the next conference just because of how top-heavy. Mm-hmm. You could argue they have the 3 best teams in the country. I don't think I wouldn't put Oregon over A&M, obviously, but I do think they have 1 and 2 right now in Ohio State and Indiana, because as much as I like A&M, they need a couple more of those impressive wins. They really haven't beaten any of those ranked SEC teams yet. And then to me, you do get to the Big 12 and some of those teams at the top before the ACC, because some of the teams in the ACC, and yes, the Big 12 has their Oklahoma States, but man, I look at the likes of a Stanford, even a Florida State, what they become right now. A Wake Forest is having a rough year too. And they've been a little better, I guess. But some of these teams, Boston College might be the worst P4 team. Like I think the Big 12 is clearly better than the ACC right now. And I do think the rankings will reflect that tonight. Sam, do you expect both BYU and Tech in the top 10?
Yeah, 100%. I think probably maybe at highest, BYU would probably be 7. I think they'll more likely be 8 or 9. And then Tech would just be like 1 spot right behind them just because they have 1 loss. So it's going to be a top 10 matchup in Lubbock. Game day is going to be there. A cool 2 weeks for the Big 12, having game day in Salt Lake City for the Utah-Cincinnati game. That was also a really cool just environment as well for, outside fans watching the Big 12. And then this game is going to be awesome. It's the BYU Tech game is probably like the game for the Big 12 all season, other than maybe BYU Utah. But I mean, this has conference championship implications. This has playoff implications. Game day is going to be there, and it's going to be nuts. I mean, it's a cool time to be a part of a team that's in the Big 12. I mean, these last 2 weeks have been great for the conference.
Utah BYU is massive because of what the rivalry represents. Yeah. This is literally a matchup against 2 high top teams. Like it's a better matchup overall than if we ignore like just the rivalry standpoint, I think. So that's where it is exciting to get this matchup too. BYU fans are not going to be happy where they're ranked at tonight, Sam, but I do even if they're in the top 10, they'll say, why are we behind some 1-loss teams? And I think it's pretty easy to say, like, look, you only win by 3 against a Colorado team that a Utah goes in and they blow out. Like if you want to be higher in these rankings, you need to be blowing out some of these teams and looking like you are this juggernaut of a team. Don't go to overtime with an Arizona team that I don't think is the greatest right here too. Like even look, Utah beat West Virginia on the road by more than BYU beat West Virginia in their own home. So this is for BYU, you're going to be in the top 10 because you're undefeated. And that is a skill to be undefeated. But if you want to take it to that next level, you got to start blowing some of these teams out. And you don't need to blow out this weekend. You just got to get a win in Lubbock, which would be your most impressive win. You have a good win over Utah. I'm not saying that you don't, but some of these top teams, they've blown out some of those other teams. That's the one thing that BYU still needs to do. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. How great has it been having the NBA back? Yes, the World Series just wrapped up, but we also get college basketball back. College football has been absolutely electric this year. If you bet on Utah this past weekend, you did very well with what they did to Cincinnati. But which NBA team do you think is going to keep it rolling? Can the Jazz have a successful year? It's going to be tough, but Lauri Markkanen is doing his best, right? So we'll see. But right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.